Hey, what's happening, everybody? I'm Charles Amaring. Welcome to the Art Studio. Today we're going to be talking about the Panasonic Lumix S1 for portrait photography. We've got lots of different examples pulled up. We're also going to talk about some of our lighting schemes for these portraits, kind of bring you some insight from that perspective. So let's roll. So if you've been following along on our channel, you know that behind the scenes via our vlogs, we've been doing some tests and kind of including it in the vlogs. We've been traveling the country with the Lumix S1, doing portrait sessions all over the place, attending Lumix events, conferences. So it's been an exciting ride, and now we're back home, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of dissect some of that and some of the recent vlogs and give you a little different perspective on them. Talk about the lighting, talk about what we did, because if you weren't there in person, you really can't quite grasp exactly how we did it. And so let's dive into a portrait session that we did on the Lumix S1 several weeks ago and take a peek at what we can do. So some buddies of ours opened a reception facility in Meriden, Connecticut called Silver City Ballroom. It's a really beautiful, elegant space, and they've installed not just DJ lighting, but full-blown club lighting, and their visual experience is really just amazing. And so I was going to go out and do some photographs for their social feeds. We ended up doing a full-blown portrait session once we got the Lumix S1 in our hands, and I thought it'd give us a cool opportunity to test it in some crazy lighting conditions, see what it can do, see how the skin tones hold up, see what the colors would be, and that's exactly what we've done. So in this portrait session, I want to talk a little bit about our lighting and how we did things. We have a light way up above, one Profoto B1. Let me bring in a Profoto B1 and kind of share it a little bit with you guys, because I want you to understand what we're doing here. This particular light shaping tool is a Profoto beauty dish with a 25-degree honeycomb grid built in. Mine's pretty beat up at this point. It's traveled all over the world. And this is the first battery-powered strobe from Profoto, the B1. They've since come out with a B1X, which is a little bit better because this uses an incandescent bulb for its modeling lamp, so the battery gets worn a little faster. The new one has a LED for the modeling lamp, so it lasts on and on and on. So big fan of that. They also have a little different scenario where the batteries seem to last a little bit longer. So the B1X is the newer model. I'm still working on the old model here. But certainly it can do the same. So we've got one way up in the balcony, and the one in the balcony is kind of aimed straight across the room, just using the built-in reflector here, because this is actually a very wide reflector. And then the one on our dance floor is just using this 25-degree honeycomb grid on the beauty dish. And I want to talk about this a little bit and kind of reference the photograph that we have here in front of us. So the photograph here that you're looking at is actually lit with this beauty dish and honeycomb grid, and I've got the actual beauty dish itself kind of a 45-degree to our subject, right? So it's basically here, it's up much higher. I don't want to lift it higher because you won't see it, but it's at a 45-degree to our subject, and what that's doing is just filling her face really clean with clean lines and clean light, but no other light's really splashing off of this. And I want to talk about the beauty dish real quick, because if I take this grid off, you're going to see it's a soft white interior. I like to think of these as having a similar quality to a softbox, but it's kind of like a blend between a softbox and a translucent umbrella, because this throws light in all directions and would really light this room a little bit too much. And so when we want to keep our light focused, what I'll do is I'll keep this grid on it, and now my light doesn't spread and bounce everywhere. It just goes straight where I want it to go. And that helps us control the light in a lot of creative ways. So what you'll see, let's go ahead and zoom in. This is the Lumix S1 with the 24-105, and it has some really beautiful detail to it. As you can see, look at all the details in her dress, very, very sharp. And as you can see behind, we get this beautiful fall off even at f4, because it is full frame. And each of these tables is pin spot lit as well in the room. And what I want to draw your attention to is that's why we use strobe in these situations, because now we're able to counteract that pen spot lighting and get good clean light throughout the room without having all of that blow out. So detail corner to corner, and that's how we keep consistency in our work. I know a few people are going to say, Lumix and a Profoto remote, wait, that doesn't add up. There is not actually a Profoto Lumix based remote yet. Fingers crossed that's on the way. But let's take a look at what remote I'm using so that you are aware and understand. They make a standard air remote transceiver also. And let's get a little closer view. And in this transceiver, I'm going to pull it off the camera. It allows us to set everything in manual mode for any camera that you put on here. There are groups and channels, so you can do all sorts of different things with lots of different strobes. But you can also, from camera, control the power of the modeling lamp, whether it's on or off, as well as the power of the strobe. And there's a little test button, the white one right here. And test your strobe firing. So this is the standard air remote, works just fine in manual mode. And quite honestly, in situations like this or at weddings, TTL is not the favored way to go. And the reason being is that we've got DJ lighting bouncing all over the place. The colors are changing, the intensity of light is changing. And what can happen is your strobes can get fooled if you're working in TTL mode. That's why personally I prefer to work in manual mode in these situations anyway. So with that said, let's dive into some more imagery here. What I want to talk about here is I'm going to show you the next photograph, and you'll see that this is lit very clean and beautiful. This is lit very moody and dark, but still detail and highlight and shadow. And I want to talk about what I call the arc of beauty here real quick and talk about what I call dragging the shutter. Now, I consider the arc of beauty to be anywhere from having a light source behind the camera, simple flat lighting, to a 45, which is just like the image we were just looking at. Let's take you in there, right? At a 45 to the subject. And then if we move this light now to side lit, it's going to be a different effect. And if we put it behind our subject right here and aim it towards our flash instead and just kind of kiss our subject with light, we're going to get an effect that is more like this. And let's zoom into it. I always have my subjects look off towards the light when I'm doing this. And what I'm making sure of is that I get enough light to fill this eye socket, a little light on that cheekbone. And what happens when you aim your strobe and your beauty dish towards the camera is that the shadow falls on the camera side of the face instead of off into nowhere, and it adds mood and drama. I want to draw your attention to one other thing here really quickly. I'm shooting at a 40th of a second, ISO 800. I don't really worry about ISO so much anymore because in the S1 and S1R, ISO is irrelevant. It can go on and on. And so what happens when we do what I call drag the shutter, which is any shutter speed slower than a 60th of a second, is that whatever color of light is in that room, whether it's incandescent light from light bulbs or chandeliers, amber light, or whether it's this blue color of light that happens to be filling the room in this situation, that's going to bake into the skin tone and feeling of the image. And so that's how you're able to get really great strobe kind of effects, have pleasing skin tones and mood and drama in your images. And you think, okay, well, you're at a 40th of a second, hand holding, if they move, you're going to be blurred. Actually, no, and here's why. This takes a while to learn. I had to learn it in the days of film, so I know it well. Flash stops action. And so, yes, if we're outdoors shooting sports, 250th of a second is key because you're outdoors, there's only one light source, you got to stop that action. But when we go indoors to a darker situation, what happens is that flash goes off, boom, boom, so fast, stops the action of our subject, and anything that we keep open allows the room to kind of flood with light beautifully. I'll hand hold to even a 1/4 of a second sometimes, especially on the Lumix cameras because of their 5-axis in-body camera stabilization and dual with the lens. No problem hand holding as long as your subject's not going crazy. But down to a 15th of a second or so, people can be moving fast, dancing on the dance floor. You'll still stop that action. So keep that in mind when you're doing wedding receptions. And you just get more ambiance and glow to the rooms when you do that. So little tip on the strobe side of things. Let's move forward to some more photographs. You can see here, again, this is at a 45 to our subject, kind of similar to what we're talking about here, right? And you can see that all the light's kind of bouncing off of that vault in the distance. This is an old bank building, and just really beautiful detail once again. We'll kind of zoom into that and see the beautiful characteristics of these files. I'm at ISO 1250 here. You can see it F4 going forward. We had another model come in. This is actually a good example because you can see where my light source is up in the upper left. I didn't crop that out. And here we've switched to just a single strobe now, single light source. We turned the one in the balcony off because we're kind of focusing on this detail. And look how it counteracts all that blue lighting from the DJ booth. Without that, we wouldn't be able to do it. And again, the 25-degree honeycomb grid focuses it on that. If we did not do that, we would see the light bouncing off of this reflective vault that has been polished metal and glass and whatnot. So that's how we're able to control it even in that situation. Then what we did was we went out up in the balcony. You can see all the club lighting above. And what's cool about this space is they'll lower it to whatever level we want. And so again, here we have our light off 45-degree angle to our subject, real simple. And then you can see what happens. I noticed when they lowered the lights that a cool thing happened, and that was that the lasers got low enough that it was coming right into the camera. So the whole time I was on the dance floor down below in kind of good lighting, I was basically using face and eye detect autofocus, and it was working perfectly well. And then when I went up into this situation, since I was aiming into this laser, I had to switch over to manual because she was in just complete darkness. It was so bright. In fact, go behind the scenes of this vlog. I'll put the link up above and you'll see just how dark it was. But that's the beauty of a mirrorless camera, is that most cameras, I think, or any camera for that matter, would be fooled in this situation. But if you're mirrorless, you now have the ability to have focus peaking built in, and that's just a huge saving point when you're in these kinds of situations. A beautiful thing. Another example in red, you can see the detail here and just how beautiful. And I've just got one more example, single light source again. This time it's at kind of almost 90 degrees to our subject here, but it kind of gives you that perspective. Let's zoom in and see the detail of this lens. Really sharp, remarkably beautiful. The skin tones of the world, I'll say this about Panasonic as well, love their skin tones and their color science. My favorite in the industry. And I just absolutely adore that all different types of skin tones look really clean and beautiful here at ISO 1000. So that's kind of a wrap on today's portrait lighting scenario with the Lumix S1. One thing I'll say is that it works beautifully well with Profoto. I know a lot of people will say, well, Profoto lights are so expensive. I agree, they are expensive. I think most people would agree to that, but they work really, really well and they last. And so that's the reason that I'm big on Profoto. We're going to go behind the scenes of more portrait sessions in future tech talks. Let me just give you a glimpse. We were in Laguna Beach and doing some portrait sessions out there. I want to talk about lighting on the beach and in situations like this. So we're going to go into how we did this and how we balanced the sunset. Then we were at WPPI for a photo walk, and we were able to do lighting with a whole group around us. You can go behind the scenes of both of these vlogs and see a little bit more. We want to talk about what we're using in daylight situations like this for strobe, because strobe does make a difference. And for today, we'll go back to our original. That's a wrap, everybody. I appreciate you joining us here on our channel and allowing me to share all that we know. And if you have any questions, reach out via comments. If you have a new direction you'd like us to go, we want to hear about it, because we're just wanting to share on our channel and give back as best we can. So that's a wrap. Have a great one, everybody. Take care. Our channel focuses on creativity, living the dream, and a positive outlook. Subscribe and join us. Go behind the scenes via our vlog, but also learn from us via tech talks, tutorials, and reviews from the perspective of two full-time artists at work.